Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth sucked. I'm going to say it. It sucked. I'm sorry. I know people are going to be mad at me. I know people are going to come at me. But I got to say it. It sucked. Before I explain to you why, though, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Smash that like button. You'll be really helping me out a lot. So why am I coming on here and saying that Infinite Wealth sucked? I mean, after all, the gameplay was much better. The gameplay was much better. The graphics were great. The story was fine. What's the problem? What's the problem, KV? What's the problem? I'll tell you. So I've been thinking about this for a long time because I finished the game, months ago. And I remember when the game ended, I just sat there feeling so unfulfilled. I was like, that's it? That was the end of the game? That's it? I was like, I'm going to sit on this for a little bit. I'm going to see what people online are saying. And well, I tried looking up people's opinions on it on YouTube. Couldn't really find anything saying anything negative. So I was like, well, maybe I'm the crazy one here. So I was like, I'm going to sit on this before releasing any sort of opinion on it on my channel. But so I've sat on it. I've been sitting on it for a few months now, and I'm still of the same opinion. It sucked. Well, I wouldn't say it's Yakuza 3 levels bad, because I still think that's the worst game in the series, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people who like Yakuza 3. I'm not one of them. I am in the group of people that don't really care much for Yakuza 3. Not that I even think Yakuza 3 is a bad game. Like, compared to other games, it's an okay game. But compared to the other games in the Yakuza series, yeah, it's not that good. And that's how I feel like about Infinite Wealth. My opinion could be summed up into, how can a game where so much happens leaves you feeling like absolutely nothing happened? That's pretty much how I summed up the game. So much happens in that game, and yet nothing happens in that game. There's no progression in the Yakuza storyline or the Like a Dragon story. No one really progresses anywhere except Kiryu. Okay, Kiryu's seeking cure for his cancer now. By the way, there's going to be spoilers in here, so if you haven't played the game yet, I recommend you coming back after you play the game. So Kiryu, he decides to seek treatment, and I guess he's going to be no longer under the thumb of the organization slipping my mind right now, but the organization that's forced him to keep his identity a secret, and it's forcing him to pretend like he's still dead, and he's reunited with Haruka. That's cool. That's the only thing that's progressed. And I guess Kiryu has learned to trust people, which I'm pretty sure he's done that before. But okay, first time. Let's pretend first time for the sake of the argument. That's it. Everything else, I felt like this game is just one big placeholder for the next game. For part 9. That's it. It's a glorified placeholder. It's not a total waste. The gameplay is improved, and the gameplay is improved. Okay, the fighting system has been improved. Okay, it was good. There was a lot to do in the game. They added more things to do. They built upon the Sujimon stuff. They even added more things, like they added the Dondoku Island stuff, which I really had a lot of fun playing until there was nothing really left to do. So I stopped playing it, and I usually just went back to it if I needed to gain a lot of money. I was sad they took out the business thing where Ichiban was running the business, the big corporation, the I forgot what it was called, but that business he was running, because that was a good way to earn a lot of to get a lot of income, and it was a lot of fun to play. So I sadly took that out. But Dondoku Island was cool. The Sujimon stuff, they improved upon it. That was cool. The Pokemon Snap game that they ripped off, I mean, that was cool, but it wasn't really fun enough to keep me engaged a lot. I would play it here and there. But other than that stuff, and the Kiryu stuff, the reviving the dragon stuff, or whatever it was called, where you're reminding Kiryu, where you're reliving his memories. You go to a spot and you relive a memory from him. And then where he would, and then when Date would help Kiru, like he would find old friends or family of Kiru and kind of help him to regain the spirit of the dragon. I love that stuff. Listen, I'm a huge Kiru fan, and to me, this was like a love letter to Kiru. As a longtime Yakuza fan, I enjoyed this stuff, reliving the memories, seeing him reconnect with his old family and friends. I put this because he doesn't really reconnect. He's kind of just in the shadows somewhere as Date's really talking to these people, and you get to hear their perspective of how Kiru affected their lives. So I love that stuff. That was probably my favorite thing about this game as a huge fan of Kiru. Kiru is bae. But everything else sucked because nothing progressed. Everything that they started with, like they put in there that I was hoping would have some big payoff, there was no big payoff. The game starts off fine. Ichiban has his life figured out. He's doing really well. And then he goes on a date with Saiko. And, you know, it seems like life is good. But the date doesn't go with Saiko because he blows it by freaking showing his cards too early, laying it on the table, and it scares her off. And then he gets canceled by this VTuber online. So he gets canceled and his life just gets taken away. But then he's sent on a mission to go find his mother, who is still alive. And that's where everything begins, and that's how the journey begins. Meanwhile, Kiru is sent by the organization to go find Ichiban's mother as well. So it starts off good, right? And the whole time, listen, you're wondering if him and Saiko will resolve everything. You're wondering what's going to go down between Ichiban and his mother and all these developments. And then meanwhile, there's an evil cult. And then there's this other new evil guy. Forgot his name because he's kind of an unforgettable bad guy. I mean, he's kind of a forgettable bad guy. So I don't even remember what he is. He's trying to revive the Yakuza, though. That's all I remember. And he's being really shady about it because he's working under the guise of trying to reform old Yakuza, but really he's just trying to bring the Yakuza back in his own way. So it starts off promising, right? And so then you go through the game, and yes, a lot happens. You fight giant sharks, you fight giant squids or octopuses. The giant Roomba comes back. Not in the main storyline, but as a side storyline, of course, side quest or whatever, side mission. A lot of stuff happens, but at the end, nothing happens. Yeah, you win the day, you beat the bad guy, you beat the evil cult. And that's it. Nothing really happens with him and Saiko. Like, they make amends. Okay, and listen, I'm a sucker for if they or will they or won't they storylines. Jim, Pam, The Office type storylines. So I was really invested if him and Saiko would get together. But they don't. Like, they resolve it, and then Ichiban's all happy, and then he screws it up again. But there's no kiss, there's no moment where it shows they're an item now. So I was unfulfilled there. Well, how about Ichiban's mother? Well, they have this moment at the beach where they have this deep talk, but Ichiban never calls her mother. Like, he's still kind of like, I don't know if you're my mom or not, but if you are, cool. I guess. And so there's no fulfillment there either, because it's like, oh man, Ichiban, now at least he has a known parent that's still alive, and there's no definite whether what's his name is his father or not, the guy who he looked up to. Sorry, his name is slipping me right now. There's no there's this hint that he's the actual father of Ichiban, and it seems like all signs are pointing that he's the father, but it's like Ichiban's like, well, if he is, cool. It's like there's nothing that progresses. There's no moment between him and his mother that's like, oh, mother, I missed you. Like, I always wanted to know what it was like to have a mother, blah, blah, blah. He just talks to her like some woman that he's helping out. And he's like, yeah, if you're my mother, cool. But if not, that's fine too. And so there's nothing there. And what about Kiru, right? So Kiru goes on this whole journey and the dragon's revived. He's found his will to live, right? And he's meeting all these people from his past via Date, which I brought up earlier, which is great. But the one final person that he has that he has yet to reunite with is Haruka, right? So this whole time you're waiting to the final moment where him and Haruka reunite, right? Because that should be this huge moment. That's the girl that he raised since she was a child, right? They have this special bond, this special father-daughter bond. And Haruka and Haruto, this should be a huge moment where they all reunite. You know, you expect to see Haruka with tears falling. Oh, Uncle Kiru, you're back. You're alive. I can't believe it. You know, and then him, Haruka, I'm happy to see you. Yes, I'm alive. And so you're finally waiting for this big moment. And that doesn't happen either. The only thing we get is just like, oh, he's in the hospital now. And it shows that she's visiting him. That's it. No special reuniting. No big moment. So it's like all of these moments where I'm waiting to like, yes, here it is. And nothing. Nothing from anything. So at the end of the day, nothing really progressed. Nothing. Other than, yes, Kiru's alive now. Like, I mean, at least he's known that he's alive. They're reunited, but we didn't even get anything that was like a big moment from there. And then Ichiban, nothing really progressed either. So to me, this just felt like one huge placeholder for the next game. That's it. Am I wrong? Tell me where the lie is. Tell me where I'm wrong about this. That's how it felt to me. This game was such a big letdown. Because, like I said, there were things that I enjoyed about the game, even though there are issues. There's a lot of RGG. There's like a lot of Yakuza tropes, like a dragon tropes now, that I think they need to work on because it's starting to become too predictable. A lot of the side missions, I was able to guess where they were going because it just seems like, okay, for instance, I don't have a specific one in mind, but there'll be times where someone's doing something in secret so someone else wouldn't find out, right? Like, oh, I'm secretly doing this to raise money to, I don't know, do this for this person. And then, or something, or I don't want them to know this because blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the side mission storyline, it's revealed that the person they're hiding from, they're like, oh, I do it all the time. Like, what's his name? Yeah, that's actually a good example. What's his name with the glasses, who is a new character in the series. You know, he got taken away from his girlfriend and stuff. So he is like trying to make sure that his ex-girlfriend's okay, you know, because he got sent to prison and she moved and stuff, but then he hears she's back in town. And so he wants to make sure that she's okay, right? And so he's secretly meeting up with her new boyfriend to make sure he's a good guy and stuff, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I can't let her know, blah, 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 this, and I can't let him know who I am, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, it's revealed, oh yeah, they knew it. And it's like, dude, what? You got to think of some new stuff. Like, your writing is getting old. It's getting too predictable. I could see where many of the side missions are going. I could already see it. Okay, it's probably going to end up where they know this. Or it's probably going to end up this is going to happen. And sure enough, I was right 95% of the time. 98% of the time, probably. So the side missions, and then they brought back too many characters from the last game. Listen, I'm fine with you bringing back some characters, but the writing for them, why they're there, is just so lazy. It's like everyone went from Japan to Hawaii all of a sudden. I don't know why, but they're there. I mean, they do explain why they're there, but it's kind of lazy. It's like, why couldn't you just think of some new characters? Maybe bring back one or two characters, but when you're almost all of the characters from the other game is brought into this game, like when they all go from Japan to Hawaii all of a sudden, it takes away a lot of the believability. And yes, I know that's funny to say in a game where you fight a giant shark, but in this game, I'm expecting to do things like fight giant sharks. But when all these people magically go from one country to the other for just the sake of this game, that's a little too much for me. I'm sorry, it just is. You might say that's ridiculous, but it is a little too much for me. And also, how many like underground casinos and stuff are there in this world? A lot of the same tropes are there, and they need to write some new stuff just to make it a little bit more unpredictable. Because this felt like just one huge placeholder, one huge expansion from the last Like a Dragon into this one. And that's the reasons why I think this game sucked. Now listen, I'm not saying this to be a hater. I love this series, okay? I love the Yakuza series. This is currently my favorite series right now. I get excited whenever I hear there's a new game coming out. I have played all of them. I've even played the Judgment games. The Judgment games are, in fact, is how I got into the Yakuza series, because the Judgment games were so good. I was like, well, if these games are so good, then the Yakuza games should be good. And sure enough, I was right. They were great. I have played all of them, and I've liked all of them. Oh, I never played the zombie one, but I've heard that wasn't that great anyway. I don't really have to play it. So I never played the zombie one, but all the other Yakuza games I've played. And I've liked all of them, with the exception of 3. 3 is the only one that's been meh for me. But even then, 3 wasn't a bad game. And I don't think Infinite Wealth is a bad game either, just to be clear. I just think it's a disappointment and a letdown. Especially when you go from great games like a Dragon 7, and when you go from The Man Who Erased His Name. Both were excellent games, both hyped me up for this one, only to be let down and deflated. I hope the next Yakuza game, and no, not the Majima Pirate one, that's coming out soon. I'm excited to play that as well. But I hope the next installment in the series, Part 9, I hope it's much better than this one. I hope they introduce like new storyline elements, get new writers in there, and also actually progress the characters. Actually progress the stories. Because there was no progression in here. It all stayed the same, other than Kiryu. But even then, they messed it up when there was no big scene of reuniting between Kiryu and Haruka. How could you build it up so much by having Kiryu not, being so scared to meet back with Haruka and on all this stuff, only to not show when they reunite? How do you F that up? How do you do it? So yeah, it's not an awful game. It was just a huge letdown, guys. And I gotta be honest and say it. Because if we're honest and we say it, that's the only way that they'll improve on these things. What do you guys think, though? Am I wrong about this? Or do you agree with me? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoy content like this. And if you like to see people playing games, I got stuff on the screen for you to click on and enjoy.